And welcome back to Still Too Much podcast. I am your host, Liz Mears, and this is the podcast where we talk about neurodivergence, parenting, mental health, consciousness, spirituality, education, to name but a few, and what it really means to live in a world that has told us we are too much all along the way. So, whether you're neurodivergent yourself or simply trying to understand things from a new perspective, you are super welcome here. And also today, who is super welcome here, is my fantastic guest, Joanna Hunter, who I am most definitely a fangirl of. So, Joanna, please introduce yourself.
Hey, my name is Joanna Hunter. I have ADHD. I'm a mama of three, and I help to upgrade people's consciousness and realities for a living.
Now, lots of people are going to go, well, what does that mean? Now, I
Yeah.
know what it means.
I think we'll start off with a question, really, is if you could upgrade one or more, like one or more things in your life, whatever it is, your house, maybe your bank account, like whatever it is, right? Like, let me not put ideas in your head. But if you wanted to upgrade one or more of those things, what would they be? And I want you just to take a moment just to think about what would that be? Like, what would changes would you like to see in your life? And that's where someone like me comes in. And I help you to not only imagine it, but I also help you to align your energy to it and step into a more magical version of your life.
Yeah, it's a very exciting prospect, and I think I'm absolutely just chuffed to bits that you've come on the podcast to be here to speak about it all because you have helped my life considerably and upgraded my reality in many, many ways. And I think, would it be possible before we get into it in the deep way, you could give everybody just a little bit of the backstory of where you come from, Joanna, because it is an incredible story that you have.
Yeah, so I became an entrepreneur at the age of 23, and it was on a hope, a wing, and a prayer. I had £3,000, and that was it. And 1,000 of that money was mine. 1,000 was a loan, and 1,000 was a grant, a business grant. And that's how I started. And between the ages of 23 and 26, I built um three six-figure businesses and then a fourth six-figure business. And I built them all from that initial investment. That was it. And I then worked in all of those businesses. And I had a massive burnout, huge. I collapsed of multiple organ failure at home. I was told that I needed to prepare my family for my passing. The doctors asked me if I wanted a priest to do my last rites. It was massive. Looking back in hindsight, I think I had an autistic burnout, a
Yeah.
spectacular, massive, huge autistic burnout. And I just couldn't keep living in the way that I'd been living. And I did something really naughty, but it was definitely the right move. I signed myself out of hospital.
That's very
And I was
autistic,
very
isn't it?
cocky. I just signed myself out. I was like, I can die at home. I had no intention of dying, but I needed to get away from the hospital and I needed to get away from people who believed that I was going to expire.
Yes.
And I needed to be around people who believed that I was going to live, which was my children and my husband. And I needed to be around those folk. And that was the right move. And the doctors were really protesting because at that point, like none of my soft tissue organs, like liver, kidneys, bowels, none of it was working. Like none of it was working. And so I signed myself out and I got a journal when I arrived home in between. I was sort of slipping in and out of consciousness. So I got my husband to push the couch. It was in October, and he pushed the couch against the patio windows because they couldn't send me home with oxygen. They refused to send me home with oxygen. So I was really struggling to breathe. And so he cracked the patio doors. And so I was getting this breeze from the patio doors that was helping me to breathe. And I and I asked him to get me my journal, and I was all bundled up in lots of blankets and things. And in between going in and out of consciousness and trying to breathe, I wrote in my journal for the first time in my life, extreme self-abuse got me here. And I wasn't a drug addict. I wasn't addicted to alcohol, but I was a workaholic. And my very sensitive nervous system had just reached its complete limit. And I realized that if extreme self-abuse, I've always been a very logical person. I always think that's maybe the autism now,
Yeah.
that I like to think in very linear ways. And so I thought, well, if extreme self-abuse had got me here, then the only thing that will get me out of it is extreme self-love. And it had to be extreme because I'd already visited one extreme. I felt like the only way to bring it back into balance is to visit the other extreme. And so I wrote that in my journal, and but that posed a huge problem. And that problem was I don't know the first thing about self-love beyond a bubble bath. I
Yeah.
don't know what it looks like. I don't know how you practice it. I don't know what you do. Like I've got nothing. And and so the next few months became an exploration of what it would look like to really genuinely learn to love all of who I am
Mm.
and to be kind to that because I had had a very, very cruel inner critic. I was constantly, and I realized, things like rejection sensitivity dysphoria, um, that rampant inner critic that so many neurodivergent people have, like all of that. And I was undiagnosed at this point in time. So, like, all of that was really heightened and learning to kind of uncouple those things, um, and learning to kind of say, no, actually, that's not how I want to feel about myself. I want to feel something different about myself. So slowly on the road of recovery, it took years. And I began to heal my body, but I began to heal my body through a wisdom I started channeling that we now call Skylar. And they took me from, I think, a very asleep state of being into a more awakened state of being. And I gave up my businesses apart from my spiritual events company. And I just slowly began to rebuild my life. And then in 2015, I felt I was really wanting to move everything that I had created and kind of swap directions slightly, pivot slightly. I did at that time like spiritual readings and things and coaching, but I loved coaching. And I thought I want to build an online coaching business. And I knew nothing about building an online coaching business.
I love that about us neurodivergents. We're like, we're going to do this. Let's go.
Yes. I knew nothing, nothing. So in 2015, my family were living on welfare. That's how we were. And I was scared
Mm.
because I had two teenagers and then a young baby. And those teenagers were about to tap out the system.
Right.
And we were like, how are we going to afford to live? Like, how are we going to manage? Like, we're not going to manage. At some point during this whole process, like my husband had become my carer.
Mm.
Um, and so in 2015, I sat him down and I said, I think I'm well enough to build an online business. But I'm gonna need you to go out to work again.
Mm.
And he started working a call center for he did I don't know if I should be saying this, but they called it BT Broken World.
Oh, yes. I know the
And
one.
so he basically helped people with their internet and stuff because he's always been quite techy. So he helped people with their internet and stuff. And that's what he did. And that stabilized our income so that I could begin to build. But we were still on benefits at that time. We still qualified for benefits. We're still on benefits. I chose an online business because I just felt really called to it. But the other reason was that you can literally build an online business with a $0 startup. Like you do not need money to start an online business. Like a PayPal account is free. Like there's so many free tools that anyone can really start an online business, which I really love. Like
And
it's
there's
one of the
even more
things.
today.
Yeah, like it is definitely one of the biggest opportunities that people pass by all the time, you know? And, back in the day, you had to be approved, by so many people, and now you can broadcast yourself. And even the big brands are paying like creators to like create content for them because that's more successful than paying big ad agencies to like run slick marketing campaigns. Some wifey in her kitchen talking about your product sells more product than actors in an advert playing
It's
on the telly.
absolutely mind-blowing.
It
And
is
like
mind
you
blowing.
say, too many people I don't like just have a go, just do it because people want authentic, real people. And I don't like to overuse authentic, but it is just real people. I want to
It
see it
is
in
real
your work.
people. And I think that's the fascination with reality shows, and that's the fascination with social media. And I think, that's the thing that we love when we get these glimpses into life. So um I really, really struggled when I first put myself on social media. I mean, it was almost like I switched that camera on and it was like homing pigeons. Like every self-doubt thought that there was, they just went whoosh into my head. But I had a couple of things that really kept me going. So my brother's a personal trainer and he had been like 21 stone and then become a personal trainer. And so he used to say these things and they really motivated me when it was time to put myself online. And so he always used to say, if you've always done what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And I was in the market for a new reality. That's what I wanted. I wanted a new reality for me and my family. So I knew that I couldn't keep doing what I'd always been doing. I had to do the scary thing. I had to do the thing that frightened me. I started posting myself on social media and I thought, oh my God, like people are going to be so critical. The trolls are going to come out. And then something miraculous happened. I was probably about 3 months, like the first 3 months, honestly, it felt like I was going, hello, is anyone there? And there was like nothing. It was crickets,
Yeah.
right? Like nobody was paying me any attention, which was kind of disappointing considering my brain was telling me
Yeah.
like the trolls were gonna like nail me to some cross or something, you know? And there was like no one, like no one, not even a troll, like hello, you know? And
Echo.
then about 3 months in, I started to build up momentum and people started writing, oh my God, I needed to hear this today. And it was not about me, it was about the message.
Yeah.
And that was when it dawned on me, and I was like, oh, it's not even about me. It's about the message I've got. And I totally made it about me. Like I thought like people were gonna be like, oh my God, look at her, like why is she doing this? And and there was none of that. Like none of that. And so people started talking about it. And I built my fifth six-figure a year business. And within a year and a half, I retired my husband from his day job.
Wow.
And then 4 months later, or no, 6 months later after that, we brought my daughter home. And she began working as our social media manager. So she had been doing 5 a.m. starts at Tesco's and doing
Wow.
like the Tesco's.com and picking people's trolleys and stuff. And so she had been doing that. And so she came home and became our social media manager. And then our company just like grew and grew and grew. Then we had the pandemic,
Mm.
and I was one of the winners from the pandemic. Like there was a lot of people who were so affected, and we had like low key guilt during that time because like our business started booming
Yeah.
because everyone was looking to pivot. Everyone was looking to build an online business, and there we were teaching both how to pivot, how to build an online business, and how to upgrade your reality. So, you know. In 2020, I introduced the world to something called the $1 million experiment. My $1 million experiment. It was an experiment that went viral and put my business on the map. It was a very simple experiment. It literally said, can mindset and intuition training along with $1 million plan, make you a millionaire in just 1 year. And then we offered a year-long sort of container. We offered 52 lab notes. I did 52 podcast interviews with millionaires to
I
pick their
listened to
brain.
every single one.
They're so good, aren't they? Like they're
They
so
are.
good. Like they dropped so many gold nuggets in those episodes. Like so many of them dropped such gold nuggets in those episodes. And then yeah, and then the lab notes and then we did some like kind of impromptu trainings inside as well, right?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, we offered a 50% affiliate fee, which meant that if you brought two people into the experiment, you could make your money back. And my little email list was 2,600 people at the time, and 4,300 people joined.
Wow. My
And
goodness.
and in 3 days, 2,000 of those people found us. And so we had at one stage a sale happening every 5 seconds.
Wow.
And it was unreal. And I had a $32,000 day.
Wow.
And it was unreal. And so in January 1st of 2021 was my $32,000 day. And it was just unreal. Like it was just, we were just like, what is
What is
going on?
happening?
What is happening? And my stepdaughter is really tech savvy. So like we were like, please help. And then one of my really good friends, I was like, please help. And so our kind of team built impromptu around us and it was great. And they were amazing. Like they really, really helped me during those days. And like I just couldn't believe how much my life was changing before my eyes. And
Yeah.
then we did the $1 million year and one in every 268 of our participants became a millionaire that year.
It's just phenomenal. And I love it that you always say you've got, this, you got more chance of doing it this way than through like winning the lottery or
So if
something.
you play the UK Lotto and you want to win that jackpot, you have a 1 in 15 million chance, right? It's a total game of chance. If you do $1 million experiment, the people who became a millionaire was 1 in 268 people.
Mm.
And that's not to say that the other, because 85% of people surveyed who filled in our survey said that the experiment had significantly improved their financial situation. So
Yep.
even if they didn't reach like 85% of people, and the thing is, it's because in the experiment, you control a variable that you don't control in the lotto. The lotto is a complete game of chance. In the experiment, you control yourself.
Yeah.
You get to choose. You
Yep.
get to decide what you're doing. You get to decide how you're going to go about it. And so the cool thing is, that you're not going to let yourself down, right? Which is why 85% of people literally were like, yes, marked improvement in my financial
Yeah.
situation.
And I'm one of those. I very much bet on myself.
Yes. What I love about your story, can we talk about your story in
Yeah,
the
of
in the
course.
experiment? Because one of the things that I really loved about it is that you signed up for the first one and didn't do a lot with it.
Nope,
And
wasn't there, wasn't ready. Stuff going on at home, too much. I think old blockages, if we want to go
mhm.
down that route from yeah, family members and stuff. And so it was the second time that it worked. But I was all in. I wanted to the first time. I knew it was going to do it, but it did take the second time to do it. And I think that's just I think the testament there is that you don't freaking give up. And I think as parents and neurodivergents, we're very much kind of, yeah, I'm not giving up.
That's why I loved your story so much. I loved your story so much because you paid the money the first year. It's $25. It wasn't like
No, it wasn't
earth-shattering, but
expensive.
I remember when $25 was like, hang on, let me think about this type of
Exactly.
spend, right? And and then a lot of people are like, oh, well, it didn't work. It's like, but the thing is, you recognize, well, I didn't work,
Yeah.
right? And so if I'm gonna sign up again, like, am I gonna like be all in this time, right? And that was the shift in consciousness that you had from the first time
Yeah.
to the second time. It was like, I need to work this if it's going to work,
Yeah.
right? And then you showed up the second time and you really started. And I remember when you messaged me and said, I've had a really amazing win. It's like massive to me, but it's probably not big in your world. And it's like I just bought a car cash, right? And I'm like, oh my God, like, are you kidding me? Like, this is a win-win-win. Because I remember when I bought my first car and was able to like say, right, this is the one that we want. And we had the money for it to do it. And it wasn't a brand new car to me. It was a new car, like it was a new car to us, but it
Yeah.
was not a brand new car. It had but it was the best car we'd ever bought at that point in time.
Yeah.
And it was a little Nissan Note is what we
Oh,
got. Right. And it was lovely. It was perfect at the time. And and it was and so when you wrote to me and you told me that, I was like, please don't downplay your wins because
I
like that is a
know.
win, win, win. And it's one that I remember with such fondness for myself. Like I was just like
I just
the
had to tell
feeling
you.
of like you are literally like the dog with two tails when you're driving that car, knowing that you've paid for it, knowing that you've created this, you've generated this.
Yeah.
It is so amazing. And
I
obviously
got
a car is
goosebumps
also
again already.
like it's so powerful, isn't it? And like
It,
you know it's you that did it, right? Like
yeah.
it isn't like it feels like magic, but you know it isn't anything like airy fairy. You
No.
actually like suddenly you sat there with solid proof.
Yeah,
I did this.
undeniable proof is sat in my driveway.
Yeah,
And I
undeniable
chose it. I
proof.
got the color I wanted. I got the make I wanted. And
Like
like
you
you, it's
manifested the
yeah, it,
shiz out of that.
it is it is just magic. And like you
And it
say, I
feels
mean it's
magic.
2 years on from that and I still get in her and I'm like, hi Carl, how you doing? Because it's great.
It's the best. It's the
Yeah,
best, honestly. And so I knew I wanted your story in the book, My $1 Million Experiment, the second version of the book. I knew I wanted your story in there. And the reason, was that like some people, yeah, they did make a million, but other people got $1 million results, even though they didn't
yeah,
hit the goal of the experiment. They still got $1 million results. And that shift in consciousness and that reality that's upgraded as a result, because once the mind has stretched to new dimensions, it can't go back to old dimensions, right?
no,
Like it has to keep living at that new dimensions. And that's what's so beautiful about this work that I do is that, I literally see people's minds stretching to new dimensions and they realize, I really can affect my reality. I really can change things for the
yeah,
better. I don't just have to suck it up and let this be all the be end and all.
yeah.
Like I can look at my reality and say, I want this upgraded. I want this new experience. I would like this for myself and know that you have the power to do that. Like that's so
That
crazy.
power is worth more than £1 million, right?
Yeah. That's what a lot of my clients talk about how their realities upgraded, but then they say, but the real upgrade, and it's always something personal to themselves. Like the real upgrade is I never have to worry again because I know that there's power inside of me. Or the
Yeah,
real upgrade is I know that I have these tools and I can use them whenever I want. The real upgrade is,
yeah,
and then they talk about the real upgrade. And
yeah.
I think that's so powerful as well because that is like, that's the upgrade you didn't go shopping for, right? Nobody's like, oh, I just want to have a life with no worry. Yes, we kind of dream about that, but we don't even, as we're dreaming about it, we don't think it's really possible. And it isn't until you're stepped in that place and you're realizing, okay, like I have clients that tell me all the time, like the way I approach life now, totally different. Like I'm so much more
Completely.
chill. I'm so much more calm. If something goes wrong in my world, like I know there's a way to fix it. Like I am not like a lot of people used to live on that, what I used to call the knife edge. That's how I felt. Like I lived on the
Oh,
edge of a knife.
100%. Yeah.
I lived on the edge of a knife and everything was so like, oh my God. And I was in what I call the do or die energy, where you like literally think you better do or you're gonna die,
Yes.
and it was like that. It was so intense. It's such an intense, stressful way
It's a
to live.
horrible, horrible place to live in.
Yes, and so many people are living in that place, that do or
Yeah.
die place, and learning these applied consciousness tools, learning these light tools, learning these things, and it all lives up here. This is the magic, right? Like you take it with you wherever you go,
Yeah.
right? And so knowing that you've got this toolbox in your brain that you can now upgrade your life with, which is so
I
cool.
mean,
So
my
I love
upgrade,
that.
yeah, absolutely. Because my one of the first things for me was not having to check my bank account every morning to check that the money was in there to pay the bills.
Yes.
That was enlightening. Because when you do live in fear all the time, it's exhausting. Um, and like you say, to know that you have the tools within you. And quite frankly, one of my go-to tools is if I find myself wibbly wobbling again, is I remind myself that A, I have created the change that I wanted, and B, literally the universe has never let me down. It's always found my way forward. And so I need to trust it.
Yes. Yes. And that in itself is like just a shot of calm when the world can look very stressful and the current reality can look very stressful. And you realize, like, okay, let me have a word with myself here. Like, the universe has never let me down. Go sit in that car.
Yeah.
Like if you need proof, go sit in the car, right? There is, the thing is like there is a way forward. And
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that I love about the work that I do, not only from a personal perspective, but knowing that that gives that to other people as well, that they can start to imagine their lives differently and things.
It's
And
truly the biggest gift.
it's
Truly.
the real upgrade, right? Like there's the reality upgrade, and then there's the real upgrade, which is like the quality of your life, of knowing that, you've got this and that you can find a way forward and it's going to be okay. And a lot of people say to me, like, I can now cope with whatever life throws at me because I know that I have this toolbox that I keep coming back to and that I can shift anything that comes my way that feels hard or difficult, and that's what I love about really working with people to upgrade their realities. It is exciting because I never
It's
know what people are going to create with it, you know?
no, no, and it's fascinating. And like you say, in the book, there are so many, I mean, fabulous stories about what people have created and want to create and are going on to do. And it's wonderful because one of the questions that I was going to sort of come around to with you was um, particularly, I think, women struggle with the financial sort of stuff, and it seems to be a lot of women that you have actually helped, and I find that fascinating. And we've spoken before about how what would it would be like if we were the ones with the money, the good-hearted people had the money, and what
Yes.
change we could make.
There's two changes that I want to make is I want to create conscious millionaires. That's the first thing. But the second change is I want to see more money in the hands of women. Okay, and here's why. 10% of the world's millionaires are women. The other 90% are men. Okay, we do a little bit better in the billionaire stakes. 11% of billionaires are women, but the other 89% are men, right? And that tells us that there's no equality in wealth distribution. Okay. Now, considering in 1984, a woman in the UK could not hold a bank account unless she had a co-signature of her husband or her father or another male relative, right? We have got some catching up to do. So, one of the first things that I really think that will change and create global change and shifts is more women millionaires and more women billionaires. And Mackenzie Scott, who is Jeff Bezos' ex, she is a classic example of what happens when women have a lot of money. Like she has been on a giving spree, funding programs, funding things. She actually has a team of people whose job it is to find things to fund with her billions. That is so, so inspiring to me. Like that is so inspiring to me. And this is why I think we need more women who are mega, mega wealthy. Because the more women who hold that wealth, they fund things like school programs, schools. They fund more community-based spending than what men do, right?
Yeah.
Men will do property and things like that, but but they're not looking, they tend not to invest in community property, right? So they don't tend to be like low cost rent and things like that, right?
Yeah.
There's a woman that I follow and she does OnlyFans, right? And I follow her on TikTok and her name's Rebecca Goodwin and she's made millions on OnlyFans, right?
Nice.
Like power to her. But what she
Absolutely.
did is like build houses, affordable housing for other single parents and for other people in low income families,
Oh,
right?
wow.
Like, like this is a woman who does OnlyFans and she is funneling that money into, and I find that inspiring. Like, I don't care what this woman does, like,
Absolutely.
power to her. But, you know, like the fact is that this is what so many women do
Yeah.
when they have resources, is that they immediately look around their community and go, who needs my help? Who
Yeah.
needs something? How can I make society better versus how can I just make my life better?
Yes.
And so that's my bee in the bonnet that I have is I really want to see more women millionaires. And we can't see more women millionaires unless we start educating women, and a lot of women are scared of money,
Mm.
right? We've been taught so many different things about money. We've got so many convoluted, crazy ideas about money. And there is a fear
Mm.
around there as well, right? And I want to do a spoiler alert for everybody listening to this, is that the
Ooh.
spoiler is if you hold a fear about money, it's a self-trust issue.
Yeah.
You don't trust who you're going to become when you have a lot of money. But I want to say to you, trust in the inherent goodness of your heart.
Amen.
Trust in the inherent goodness of your heart. Because there comes a point where your needs are fully, fully met. And when women's needs are fully met, we tend to just get generous,
Yeah, we do.
right?
Yeah.
And we are natural at giving. And I think this is how we improve school systems. This is how the other thing as well is like women are sat there and they're like, ah, there's not a seat at the table. Lady, buy a seat and drag it to the table. Yeah.
Literally.
Stop asking for a seat at the table. Get a seat, stick it at the table,
Tell them to
and
move
let your
over.
voice be heard. And it
Yeah.
is a lot easier to do that if you have resources, which is money, behind you to do that.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, people vote with their money.
Yeah.
None of these big corporations that are doing the environment dirty, none of them would exist if people weren't voting for them with their money. The moment people are willing to withdraw paying these companies, the minute they're willing to not use them, the profits go down
Yep.
and their ability to affect others goes down with it. Their
Yeah.
power goes down with it. And I think this is why I want to see more conscious millionaires because now we have voting power
Yes.
and we can veto things that we don't think are right in society. And let me tell you, there's tons of stuff that's not right in society.
Absolutely. We need lots of us because there are lots of different things that we would change. I mean, yeah. I mean, you know that mine would be around the education system and creating something new there for the communities, for not just the neurodivergent kids, but for every kid in this world. That would be where I would be lobbying and throwing my money around, and just as
Exactly.
that everybody would do something different, wouldn't they? And I'm thoroughly I love quoting you on that and saying, let's I don't know if audacity is the right word, but like, if these men folk can make all this money, let's have a piece of that pie too and nurture everybody. I suppose women are nurturers, aren't they? And that's what we like to
Yeah.
do.
I think the other fear that comes with women making money is that we think that we have to do it like a man. and
Yes.
we don't. We think we have to hustle. And I heard this thing that lives now rent free in my head, and I'm not mad at it that it lives rent free in my head, is that men's cycles are 24 hours and women's cycles are 28 days,
Yes.
right? So if you think about energy as a cycle, a man's energy renews every 24 hours. A woman's cycle renews every 28 days, right?
Yeah.
So there's parts of our feminine cycle where we should not be all out there, right? Because what we really need is that ebb and that rest, because that's the phase of our cycle that we're in. We should be cycle syncing, and we should be cycle syncing our businesses. We shouldn't be running our businesses like a man, renewing every 24 hours and then wondering why we get burnt out. Like, no.
Yeah. Why am I burnt out? I absolutely love that because that is something that excuse me, I have definitely in the last 2 years, I would say, especially with your experiment and then alongside learning that I am ADHD, probably autistic too as well, being surrounded by because a lot of my friends like you have discovered that they're neurodivergent. Um, that has helped me really start sinking into my seasons and my ebb and flow. And that makes so much sense that it just saying it like that made my brain go, well, yeah, duh, because it's a slower accumulation of waves that pick up along the way. And I have learned to do that of my own accord, I think. I think that's really important to perhaps show other women that that's the way to do
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. I never forget sitting and having the absolute pleasure sitting down to dinner or lunch one day out in Phoenix in Arizona and sitting next to this really, really interesting woman called Aline Bender. And Aline told me that she was a top like timeshare like estate agent type person, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm probably butchering what she does, right? But she was like one of the number one sales people for that, right? And all her other colleagues were male. So she's this beautiful Asian woman, and she's like this top sales assistant. And all the men accused her of witchcraft, right? Which was hilarious because they couldn't understand how she got all these sales. And she told me some really, really interesting things. And I really love this because I think this shows the power of women in business. Okay. So here's what she told me. She said she started off and she tried to do it just like a man.
Mm,
She ended up really burnt out. And at the end of, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks, she had made like no money, like none.
yeah.
And it was just not working for her to do it like a man. And then she thought about anthropology, right? Which is like how humans used to live. And she used to think about how men are hunters and they would leave the village and the women and the children would be left in the village and the men would go off and they'd be like, right, ladies, what would you like to eat? Like woolly mammoth,
Yeah.
right? And they're like, great. And so they would pick their target, right? Then they would go out and they would hunt and they would maybe be successful and sometimes not successful, but they would be gone for days,
Yeah.
right? And so the women were left in the village with the children, and the women all looked at each other and kind of, and this is her story that she tells me, right? And she's like, and the women would all look at each other and they'd be like, well, you know, I'd like to eat every day. I don't want to wait on the men to bring home woolly mammoth, right? So one of the women says, well, there's some berries over here.
Yes.
And then this other woman says, well, I saw some fruit trees over here. So they said, well, hey, how about we take the seeds and we plant them near the village?
Yes.
Right? And then we can do the fields in the morning and then play with the children all afternoon,
Yes.
right? And like just chill and like be in community, right? So she realized that women anthropology in anthropology, women were the original farmers, right?
Yes.
So she took that and she applied it to selling timeshares. Okay. So she
Yeah.
says, let the men go for their targets, let them go hunting for their leads. I am going to grow my network and I'm going to grow my leads. and I'm going to become the go-to person for this, right?
Yes.
And then I can just chill and build my village around me and always have a harvest ready, right? So that's what she applied. She applied that principle to her business, and within a year had shot to the top,
Wow.
within a very short amount of time, had shot to the top sales thing. And yet, because she was never out hunting, the men were like, "What witchcraft is this?" And all she
Burn
did
the
was
witch.
she planted seeds, tended them, and let them grow into a harvest. So she built her network instead. And she put lots and lots of time and effort into relationship building.
Yes.
The men were out hunting
Yeah.
and she was relationship building. And that meant that she always looked like she was chill, like a little lunch, a little coffee, a little excursion.
Yeah.
But she was working and building that network, right? And that's how she became amazing at sales, right? Like amazing at sales. And this is such a clear demonstration of women don't need to do it like men
No.
to be uber successful. We have to find our own way. And like the 80s was a little bit of a shit show for women, and so was the early 90s, because that was the year that, especially the 80s, those were the years where women were trying to be better than a man,
Yes.
but they were doing it like men.
Yes. It was
I think
the
as we started,
ladette.
yes, as we started, like that's what the big shoulder pads were all about. And like the power dressing and the super red lipstick and all that. It was like danger. Like,
Yes.
am I going to be hard? You know, and she had to be ball busting to be
Yes.
successful. I think the 2000s and the 20s now that we're coming into 2000, you know, we're coming into 2030
Yeah.
sooner than later, right?
Yeah.
And I think what we're seeing now is there's so many women who are learning to cycle sync. There's so many women who are learning to build success in their own accord. Um, I love there was a woman that I came across recently, and I unfortunately I can't credit her because I can't remember her name, but she talked about how she gave time off for women's periods.
Yeah.
And she said that we're all adults. So offer flexi time. So basically, like if you want to come and do a 10-hour day, so you can leave a couple of hours early another day, like that is up to you, honey. Like fill your boots
That
as long as the work is
autonomy.
done, right? And these kind of infrastructures in women, and what women are building is so powerful because I think what that's showing is it's showing a different side and a new side of business. And some of these women are incredibly successful in what they're building as well. And, you know, but what they're discovering is these women manage to retain their employees way longer.
Yep.
They have better like well-being of their employees are a priority to these women,
Yeah.
right? And so their workplaces are nicer to work at. There's so
Yeah.
many like benefits to women learning our own groove in business and learning how to do it.
Absolutely. I think learning that, yeah, that we can go along with our ebbs and our flows and be given autonomy and trusting people that, we employ that they will work their hardest during that time and then the flexi time. And women are really good at offering up that trust, I think, to allow people to shine in the right way that they can. Whereas men are a little bit more military kind of about it, aren't they? A little bit old school. This is how it needs to be. And I do really, I'm ever the optimist that for the future, with more of us being able to employ more people, and I've also seen more gentlemen in business listening to the women and how they're doing it as well, which is incredible.
Yeah, I think as we're going to see in the next, I mean, my prediction is for the next sort of 5 to 10 years, we're going to see the workplace change dramatically. I
Mm.
think COVID had a really huge positive effect on the workplace in many facets. I'm sure it had negative too, but I think one
Yeah.
of the big positive ones was this could have been an email. And
Yeah.
And I think one of the other ones is I'm okay working from home. And what they many companies discovered that their employees were more productive working from home, reduced costs of offices, things like that, which
Yeah,
is great as well. Like, and I think this is like wonderful because, you know, working from home and managing children and things like that is something that's wonderful, I
yeah,
think, and there is ways to combine family and work life and it doesn't have to be this juggle, it
no,
can be something that flows and I think COVID helped a lot of that and it made a lot of companies realize like, oh, our employees do not need to be in the office 24/7. Like that doesn't actually productivity goes up if we give them some leeway, we give them some, mental space of their
yeah,
own thing.
and just for mums, particularly, that we suddenly when actually we can find this work-life balance that we're supposed to have at home. For me, it was incredible to know that actually, with my kids, that I could be like, well, mummy's working for this bit here. But then we're going to go and spend the 6 hours outside in the countryside because I've managed to focus and do things because I'm happier in myself that I'm at home with my kids and I'm not worried about them being looked after by somebody else, for example.
Yeah.
Um, it's something that I think I think, yeah, there were people that it affected negatively, but I have seen a massive change in how people think that they can have freedom in their lives.
Yes, for sure. And I think so many people now just experience life really differently as a result. And I think there was a lot of people, of course, it affected people negatively too, but I think it's left a shift in the
Mm.
consciousness of people. And for me, I saw COVID as a giant pattern interrupter.
Mm.
It interrupted a lot of people's patterns, and people were, to a certain degree, forced to change. But I think as I'm looking forward, a lot of those changes have been in the workplace, especially and around women, especially in work. More small businesses were founded during those years of COVID than
Yeah.
ever before because people, necessity is the mother of invention, for instance, right? And so they started people became more mindful. I did a few articles, one for Glamour magazine and things like that, on manifestation because manifestation had become 400% more Googled than
Wow.
before. So they wanted people who were experts on manifestation and they reached out and I did an article with them and I think I did one with the Scotsman in the Daily
Wow.
Telegraph as well. And it was fun, because people were obviously starting to get more interested in this mind reality connection,
Yes.
um, and stuff. And this was I'm here for it. So I do definitely think that it was maybe a necessary thing we all went through to
Mm.
start shifting human consciousness.
I would absolutely agree with that. Yeah, it's it's certainly changed my life, and I think it's about yes, it's not negating the hard, horrific side of it because I talk about that too with our kids, but for me, it made me realize first and foremost that we weren't going back to school. And I think that did that for a
The
lot of
same happened
people.
with our child as well. Like it was during COVID that my youngest daughter, it was so absolutely glaringly obvious that she had been miserable for weeks and weeks and weeks. And the problem with our youngest is she kept saying, I love school, right? I love school. And yet she would come home white as a ghost and go and sleep for 2 hours, completely drained. And then when we questioned her about it, she said, "Well, I really love school," she would say. And we had her back and forth to the doctors, and she was under so many specialists. They thought at one point they were wondering whether she had stomach cancer. They thought that because all her anxiety was happening in her stomach, so
So
they thought
similar to my Harley.
yeah, she thought she had like an ulcer. She got diagnosed with the weirdest stuff like stomach migraines. Like,
Yeah,
please,
we had Crohn's disease,
like all that, right?
colitis.
Like all
Yeah.
that. COVID happens. I'm sitting in my office. It's 2 weeks into the first lockdown, and I hear this little voice in the hallway, and she's singing at the top of her lungs. I have been made for this, right? And I said, Katie, is that you? And she's like, yeah. And I said, what? Like, and it was the first time she had been like singing in like months, weeks,
Yeah.
years at this point in time. And I thought, my God. And I said, what are you singing? And she said, I'm singing that I've been made for this. And I said, what have you been made for? And she said, lockdown. Got my schoolwork this morning at 9 a.m., done by 10. Day is all mine. And I was like, wow, no annoying children, right? Distracting me in the
Nope.
class and
Nope.
winding me up.
Yep.
And I was like, wow. And and then so that's when I really started to push for like an autism diagnosis. Unfortunately for Katie, it took 6 years.
It's
6 years, and we
shocking,
went
isn't it?
private. And after we went private, we were told that the diagnosis didn't count,
It doesn't count.
even
Yeah.
though
Yeah.
even though the company that did it did the overflow from the NHS. And I had made sure that I had picked a company that was dealing with NHS patients.
Yeah.
By the time we actually got our appointment, the woman who did the appointment read that she'd already had the assessment and said, that's good enough for us. That's a gold standard assessment that you've had. And we were
Wow. Like,
handed 4 websites and told to get on with it.
yes.
There was no support, there was
No.
nothing. There was no support. But going through the autism assessment with her made me realize, hang on, this sounds a lot like me.
You
And
sit there,
that
get
was like,
side-eyeing. You're like,
yeah,
oh,
I was just kind of like that. Um, and then starting, and I at 48, I realized it was all ADHD. And, and then it's taken like the last couple of years where I realized that every single health condition that I've ever had is actually a comorbidity of
yeah,
autism and ADHD. And it's like learning a new way to live, and realizing, oh, I wasn't, because I can understand how it could be so high achieving in certain areas and how I could sit on the couch and stare into space, knowing that there's dishes that needed my attention. And it's like, how can you feel like such a fuck up there?
literally.
And then yet do like really cool stuff in your business and like make oodles of money and everything like that. And then
Yeah.
yet like wash a dish, and it
It's
seems
too
so
hard.
simple. But it was
Yeah.
like the executive dysfunction and it was so difficult. And now realizing like, oh, okay. I now understand that, I understand how I work and I understand so much better now. But before, you don't just sit in that not doing the dishes. You sit in that in a critical energy.
I
You're
was just gonna
criticizing
say that.
yourself.
You
It's
why am
hard
I
on your
such a fuck
nervous
up?
system. Like it really depresses your nervous system even
Yeah.
further. It is a cycle.
Yeah.
And once you realize like, oh, there's actually nothing wrong with me, because that's the story, isn't it? There's something
Yeah.
wrong with you. Like,
Yeah.
what the hell is wrong with me? Like, why can't I get it together? Like, that is the rhetoric.
Yep.
And so when you discover like, oh, actually, there's nothing wrong with me, it's the way that my brain is wired,
Yep.
and that if a task doesn't really have a lot of dopamine in it, we're not seeking to do it, right? But there's ways that you can gamify so that you can actually like work with your brain and not against your brain,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Um, and so these are things that I've had to unpack and learn over the last sort of 3 years now. It's coming up 3 years now.
Whilst
And
teaching Katie about herself as well.
yeah, although she's brilliant, because I mean, she's not found a rabbit hole that she didn't want to go down and research, like it's like it's a lot some days, right? Because
Yeah.
like she's very bright, very, very intelligent, and she just tends to like really research
Yeah.
everything, but that can be its own that brings its own level of anxiety for her as well,
It does.
and it's hard. But one of the things that's been good with her is because she's had this diagnosis, when she comes to the doctors with things like aches and pains and stuff, like she was recently diagnosed with POTS.
Oh,
But she
okay.
was taken seriously. Like most people who get diagnosed with POTS have an average of 6 to 7 years before they
Yeah,
actually get their
it's
diagnosis.
shocking.
Because she'd had the autism diagnosis, her doctor was already considering that because it's known as a comorbidity with neurodivergence. And so people say to like I've had even doctors say to me, why would you want the diagnosis now? And it's like, because I've had a lifetime of suffering and I've been gaslit to death by the medical establishment. And
Absolutely.
yet, when I sat there and said, I think there's something that connects all of this, you were like, no, because your, you know, um, your head's got nothing to do with your toe, right? Apart from being part of the same body,
Yeah,
and it's like, it's that aggravation. And it's like, with Katie, because they know that she has this thing that kind of like connects all her systems together and gives her a very highly sensitive nervous system, and it creates, she has had lots of, um, yeah, lots of the doctors taking her a lot more seriously
I'm
over.
really, really glad to hear that for a girl as well, a young woman, because I noticed that with my Harley, that once we had the diagnosis, whenever, we'd still go to do what, the doctors, whatever, he was instantly taken seriously. And there was a part of me that was worried that it was because he was a man, because unfortunately, as women get gaslit to
Yeah.
the ends of the earth, don't we? So I'm really, really glad to hear that that's happening for Katie and that that means that she's not going to have all the rubbish that we've been through. That's wonderful.
I mean, when I go back and I look at all of the diagnoses that I've had for all different things from IBS, to gluten sensitivity, like all of these things, like so many different things that have really caused major health concerns and problems throughout the years. Every single one of them is a comorbidity of
Yeah,
autism. And if I'd had that diagnosis earlier, maybe they would have taken that and seen the connection much
yeah,
earlier. And so anybody that's listening to this, and maybe, like I just somebody wrote on one of my posts recently that she was 58 getting her diagnosis, and I'm like, girl, do it. Because what a lot of people don't understand is that neuropathy, so basically the way things are sent and processed in your body through your neural pathways, right? So one of the neuropathies is, for instance, anesthesia,
mm,
right? So an ADHD person or an autistic person processes anesthesia differently. And so you're actually more likely to wake up during an operation if you have undiagnosed ADHD or autism, because your body burns through the chemicals much faster. Or in my case, because it usually works on extremes. So in my case, I take to the chemicals really, really well, which gives the anesthetist a heart attack nearly every single time because it takes forever to wake me up
wow.
because it knocks me out.
Yeah, see, as I'm the other end of that, I'm like, bing, I'm awake, done. Hi, how are we? And
Hmm.
yeah, I didn't know that fact, so
Yeah,
that
so
makes
this is
perfect
why there's
sense.
a lot of oddity around caffeine, for instance. So many people get energized by caffeine. I have caffeine and I'm like, oh, nap time.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's time for a little nap. Like, it's warm, it's cozy. Nap time. The caffeine does nothing when it comes to my energy.
Nope.
It just makes me feel warm and cozy, and now it's nap time. And so I can happily have a full caffeine coffee and go to sleep straight after.
Yes.
And that is another way that my body is metabolizing the compound caffeine, for instance.
Yeah.
So all of these are working in people's bodies and stuff. And when you don't have it, it makes things like an operation more unsafe. It makes a lot of things unsafe. Even the way that you metabolize things like paracetamol
Yes.
and ibuprofen and stuff like that is different too, you know. Um,
Yeah,
some neurodivergent people tend to have very high pain thresholds where others have very low pain thresholds. We don't
absolutely.
tend to be in the middle where
No.
neurotypical people are more likely to be. So, you know, my mum, for instance, has an incredibly high pain threshold to the point, and I suspect that she has autism.
Mm.
As my beautiful niece said, nobody's that good at maths naturally, and my mum was an accountant. Um,
Brilliant.
you know, and like that. But she's actually got a big biohazard sticker on her medical notes that says underneath it, caution, this woman has an extremely high pain threshold. And
Wow.
my mum was able to have a root canal with no anesthesia.
What?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh. I've
Because
never heard it to that
she
level.
can switch pain off in her head,
Oh my gosh.
right? And so that is a completely neurodivergent trait.
Yeah. I mean, my son is he is very, very sensitive to things. So I have had to retrain because I think I've got a high pain threshold. I mean, tattoos and all that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
People have always been like, well, why aren't you reacting? I'm like, "Ugh, it's nothing, you know. But I've had to retrain my brain to pick up on what Harley's signals are because he can have extreme. I always remember when he was actually 3 years old, he got a splinter in the woods. And I can remember my mum was with me and the complete terror and meltdown that ensued in the middle of the woods from this splinter was what we considered completely, over the top, dramatic and everything like that. But once you start putting it, we didn't treat it like that. Obviously, he was 3. We were just trying to like look after him and get it out. He wouldn't let us get it out, all this sort of stuff. But when you realize that it's the autistic divergence that is causing that. So now when he says to me that he's got a pain, I've had to remind myself that it's probably at a certain level for me, but it's up here for him, and I need to treat it as such,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and it is, and it's, you know, and there's so many other things, you know, and I think and this is just another reason why we need conscious millionaires that will
Yeah.
actually take people seriously and
Yeah,
change the system for more neurodivergent people.
we do.
And there's so much in the news at the moment about like, oh, ADHD diagnostics is out of control. And no one's like looking at that and going, well, maybe it's been underdiagnosed for years and years and years. I mean, I had classic ADHD and autistic symptoms when I was like 5,
Yep.
you know, but they weren't looking at girls then.
Nope. No, my mum has she actually bought it off of Amazon secondhand, a book called The Hyperactive Child that she bought about me from one of those hippie woo-woo shops, Joanna, when I was 3. And I said to Mum, you have no idea how ahead of the time you were. And she was gaslit into not believing it. And it is just a case of yeah, we've just not been believed. And I thoroughly believe that we are the way forward. You've made me believe that I want to be part of the solution. I want to help make the world better, if not for my kids, but for kids in the future and everything like that. But I have realised that we perhaps ought to be finishing up now. So would you mind if I asked you a couple of rapid fire questions just to
Of
kind of
course,
finish
fire
up?
in.
I've enjoyed, honestly, we could talk for hours, Joanne. This is
Absolutely, we
fantastic.
really
Thank
could.
you.
Hopefully, people have gotten a lot from this episode.
Oh, they absolutely will have it. So, okay, I've got to choose a couple. So, interestingly, what is a belief that you no longer carry?
Oh God. There's so many. Um, okay, this is a juicy one.
Okay.
The poorer get poorer and the richer get richer. I don't carry that belief, although I will say I do believe that it appears to be like that. Okay? But here's the thing. Rich people teach their children to think in rich ways, And poor people teach their children to think in poor ways, and it's all done unconsciously,
Yes.
right? But a poor person can learn to think rich.
Very juicy, very juicy. Absolutely. And yeah, well, you have proven that, and I am in the
Yeah,
midst of proving that. So
yeah,
wow,
beautiful.
incredible. And just on a personal level for you, what is one of your most favorite ways of like reconnecting with yourself?
Walks in the forest. I love it. I love it. And there's so much research now coming out from like the air quality, like the pheromones that the trees exude and the ground exudes. Like there's so much that has positive benefits. There is a type of ionic exchange that happens in forests and things like that. But I love just taking, a kind of stroll through a wooded area. I think it's just so powerful. And it just instantly, it's just one of these like, I don't know if you know from a few years ago, if you're listening to this in the UK, you remember the good old Horlicks advert where they turn the lid on the jar and everything slows down. Like
Yeah.
that's the vibe I get when as soon as I enter the forest, I'm like,
Oh, 100% agree. 100% agree. There is nothing better than, yeah, it does. I mean, yeah, I'm an avid tree hugger, so
I think
completely agree.
I think we underestimate the power of nature to restore the physical body. And when I was going through my recovery from multiple organ failure, nature was one of the ways that I started practicing self-care
Yeah.
and being out in nature so much. And I think, my spirit team that I channel, they talk about the great divorce. And it's a one-sided divorce where we
Mm,
humans have become divorced from the planet. And it's not, the planet doesn't want to be divorced from us, but we have divorced ourselves from the planet. And there's a lot to be said for reconnecting with nature. And I think there's a lot of interesting research coming out around ADHD and autism as well, that especially an ADHD brain is actually really wired for when we were hunter-gatherers.
yeah.
And we're not really wired for modern life. And so therefore we actually thrive in more natural environments. And yeah, I definitely thrive in more natural environments.
Definitely agree with you 100%. And again, we could go off on a tangent on that one because, yeah, it's like with the ADHD diagnosis going up, well, we're more and more in an, in a place in the society that we don't fit. We don't fit with it. That is wonderful. Thank you so, so much for being here today, Joanna. It's been just like an absolute pleasure for me, and I'm sure for everybody else listening. I will be putting down in the description where we can find you. What are your best places?
So, joannahunter.com. And then if you just go Joanna Hunter com, like the com, on all social media platforms. So I made it super simple for you to find me. And I just want to point out this because I'm seeing it on the shelf there as well. But this is the book, My $1 Million Experiment. And Lizz is in this book too. So,
And I'm also just going to point out your fantastic oracle
oh, my
cards.
beautiful deck as well. Thank you.
These are my favorite, Joanna. They're not even in here anymore. They're actually in this that
Oh,
my
lovely. Oh
Phoenix
my God,
made
how cute is
me
that? I love
because I
that.
use them all the time and I wanted them to have somewhere special to sit. So yes, please do go follow Joanna around.
Yes. So
And I
I'm
will
looking
put it
at
all
this
down
book
in the
here, but
description.
yeah, so you'll get Liz's chapter in here as well, and then you'll get the original experiment in here, and then I've got a load of new chapters for this version, which is everything the experiment taught me.
It's such a fantastic book, and for me, for reading it again for myself, even though I've been through the experiment twice and then read the book, you just gather more and more information, and little light bulbs go off. It's such
The thing
such a
is,
pleasure.
with reality, it's always upgrading. Like it's always possible to keep upgrading it. So this is the type of work you're never done with.
Yeah.
Like you're always, and you can think you've done the work and then go back and revisit, and then you see another new layer.
Yes,
Right? Because you're ready for another upgrade or you're ready for another step and you start to see another layer. And that's what makes it so exciting.
it is. It is super, super. It's like when you watch a movie and you notice different things in the background. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. So, oh my goodness. Thank you so much for coming on, Joanna. It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you to everybody else for coming to listen to the Still Too Much podcast. So, if something in today's conversation has made you feel heard, understood, or a little less alone, I would absolutely love it if you could drop me a follow and keep in touch, perhaps by leaving a review, and come back ready next week for the next one. I'll see you all soon.
Thank you for
Bye.
having me.